Somebody in this audience talked. I told you people, I warned you yesterday not to repeat what I told you. And somebody did. Somebody, I knew it had to happen. I knew it was a career risk. Well, not a career risk, but I knew that asking 43.5 million people to keep a secret would be a little tough to do. Somebody among you in this audience spoke to Don Lemon at CNN.
Listen to what Rush Limbaugh, you remember, the president gave him the Medal of Freedom. Listen to what he has to say about Dr. Fauci saying the quiet part out loud.
Let me tell you how you deal with Fauci. You praise him to the hilt, exactly like Trump is doing. You praise him to the hilt. You talk about how brilliant he is, and you say that we're so lucky to have Fauci. Oh, my God, Tony, you should run for office. And then privately you ignore every damn thing he says and implement your own policy. That's the only way you can do it. Now, don't repeat that, because then the policy, the secret, be let out of the bag. But that's how you deal with these people.
Will President Trump do that?
I think he already is.
Get the Medal of Freedom for that, huh?
Don Lemon, they get the Medal of Freedom for that. Well, people were asking. We were overwhelmed with questions. Look, folks, I know where you're coming from. I know how frustrated you are. I know how you want heads to roll. I'm the same. This judge, Emmett Sullivan, what he's trying to do to Flynn. I'll tell you exactly what he's trying to do to Flynn. He's trying to prolong this and engineer this. Flynn has pled guilty. Judge Sullivan is going to pronounce sentence on that. He is going to sentence him to jail because of Flynn's guilty plea. But Rush, he can't do that. He can't do this friend of the court amicus stuff because the Supreme Court, he's going to do whatever he wants to. He's going to force a pardon from Trump. That's what this is. He is not going to let Flynn get away with the DOJ dropping the case. He's going to do everything he can to sentence Flynn based on Flynn's original plea that he withdrew, that he had lied to the FBI. Now, we know why Flynn entered the plea. They were ruining him, and they were then promising to ruin his son, like they did to Manafort, like they tried on Roger Stone, like they tried on Casey McFarland. But I think they're trying to prolong it because some people even think that the judge, Emmett Sullivan, is trying to extend this case for months in the hope that Trump is not reelected, that a Democrat is elected, like plugs. You got a new attorney general in there. You got effectively a new Department of Justice. And they withdraw their withdrawal of the case, and they re-implement the case on Flynn. And this is, these people... folks, I'm going to tell you, what is happening here, there's so many different ways to look at this, and there are a lot of people with theories. But I think somebody is scared to death what Michael Flynn knows. I don't pretend to know what it is. Don't misunderstand. I think somebody is scared to death what Michael Flynn would say, might say, could say. I think there is an all-out effort to intimidate Flynn into just shutting up. Whatever goes down from here on forward, he stands mute. He says nothing. And I think these people that are scared to death of what he knows or what he might say are all stockpiled as former Obama administration officials. We've never seen anything like this before, no matter who you talk to, with any experience whatsoever as a lawyer up to whatever level, DOJ, U.S. Attorney's Office, federal judge, Supreme Court justice. Nobody's ever seen anything like this. Nobody has ever seen a judge openly thwart the Department of Justice and their desire to not prosecute a case and withdraw it and basically throw it away. And it's got to be, I mean, look, there's partisan politics here as well. The judge, I'm sure there's a lot of people fed up that Mueller came up empty. I'm sure there's a lot of people ticked off that Andrew Weissman came up empty. I'm sure that there are a lot of people in the Obama administration saying to themselves, my God, we gave these guys unlimited money. We gave them the media. We gave them MI5. We gave them MI6. We gave them embeds. We gave them spies. We gave the FBI. We gave Comey everything he needed to nail Trump, and they still couldn't do it. And I think they're still ticked off that they couldn't do this. You know who the most clean, pure, innocent guy in Washington has to be? Donald Trump. Donald Trump has been anal examined from every angle for 3 years, and they haven't found diddly squat. And they are livid. I think that Flynn is the epitome. Having Flynn's case, that was going to be the big conviction or the big get, is having Flynn plead guilty, have Flynn get sentenced, have Flynn go to jail, have Flynn wiped out. As a message to anybody else in the Trump orbit, this could be you. And then William Barr comes along and essentially says, you guys have no case. There isn't a case here. There never was a case. Now everybody knows there was no collusion. The bottom has fallen out of everything Obama set up, including now we know that the Director of National Intelligence, Clapper, and then Comey and Brennan were all testifying under oath. They never saw a shred of evidence regarding Trump and Russia collusion, despite the fact that they're lying daily, multiple times a day for 2 to 3 years. And that is all known now. Every effort they have undertaken to get rid of Donald Trump is blown up in their face. Christine Ballsy Ford. By the way, you know this whistleblower up there, this Rick Bright guy today that's testifying how we're all going to die because Trump's president, he's not taking coronavirus serious. Guess who his lawyer is? You don't know who his lawyer is? It's the name Deborah Katz. Ring a bell? Come on, she was a lawyer for Christine Ballsy Ford. Deborah Katz was a lawyer for Ballsy Ford. Now, Deborah Katz is a lawyer for this Looney Tunes whistleblower named Rick Bright. So this ousted vaccine chief testifies in hearing. The networks are covering it wall to wall. It's nothing more than Trump-Russia collusion. It's nothing more than Ballsy Ford, nothing more than Kavanaugh, nothing more than Trump committed impeachable offenses and a phone call to President of Ukraine. So they're just, I think it's all unraveled. It's all fallen apart on them at the worst possible time, leading into the presidential election of 2020. This was going to be the period of time where Trump was supposed to be frog marched out of the White House. The plans were that Trump was going to be found guilty of collusion, whatever. Well, none of what they set up is happening. These are people that think they're infallible, that they are all powerful. Trump tweeted, this morning, just look up an hour and a half ago. He said, if I were a senator or congressman, the first person I would call to testify about the biggest political crime and scandal in the history of the country by far is former President Obama. He knew everything. Do it, Lindsey Graham. Just do it. No more Mr. Nice Guy. No more talk. You want me to parse this tweet for you? I'll be happy to. Trump's getting fed up that Lindsey Graham isn't doing anything. Lindsey Graham's going on TVs on Hannity every night or wherever, talking a tough thing, a tough game, making all these promises. Nothing ever happens. Trump's getting frustrated. You know this Rick Grinnell, the acting director of National Intelligence? Rick Grinnell has done more to expose this coup and the cabal of people in it than the Republican Senate has in 3 years. In 3 weeks, Rick Grinnell. I'm sorry to be yelling, folks. I'm just trying to relate to you. I know you're all yelling out there. I know you're all ticked off. I don't want you to think I'm not ticked off. I'm ticked off, too. Man, you people were really loaded for bear at me yesterday. I'll never forget. I mean, you were coming at me. I mean, no matter where I looked, here they came. And I know how Snerdley operates. Snerdley, sometimes he'll direct phone calls to certain areas of discussion if he thinks I should be talking about stuff but aren't. So obviously, Snerdley figured yesterday I wasn't acting mad enough about all this, so he stacks the caller roster with a bunch of people blaming me for it just to get me off the dime. I understand. I can deal with it. But I take a Rick Grinnell in, it may even be 2 weeks. And by the way, this is a flat-out observation, nothing more. He has done more to expose this in 2-3 weeks than the U.S. Senate has in 3 years. It can be done. I've had some people say, Rush, you got to be real careful. I know we don't prosecute ex-presidents, Rush. I know you got beat up for saying that, but you're right. But you got to be real careful because Obama is an ex-president, and they are untouchable. You can't just keep saying that Obama's responsible for all of this and direct. Why can't I? You know what? I got a couple of emails along those lines warning me to be careful about being overly accusatory of Barack Hussein O. So I remembered a story I had read in the 2008 campaign. And actually, it was. I knew it was around the campaign. When I went and looked it up and found it, it ran in November of 2008, a week after the election. So it was in the New Yorker, and it was by Ryan Lizza. And it was a postmortem. It was a look back at the campaign, how Obama won. But what I remembered about this story was Obama essentially admitting how hands-on he was or is. And let me give you a pull quote from this story. Obama, who is not without an ego, regarded himself as just as gifted as his top strategists in the art and practices of politics. Quote, I think that I'm a better speechwriter than my speechwriters. I know more about policies on any particular issue than my policy directors know. And I'll tell you right now that I'm going to think I'm a better political director than my political director. So here's a guy openly admitting that he's smarter than his advisors, that he doesn't need them. You think this is the kind of guy that's going to let dozens of underlings run around doing things like this coup without his knowledge, without his input, without his direction? Obamagate is all about politics, and particularly the politics of personal destruction. Obama's ego would not allow him to remain out of the loop with such an operation implemented. And the people working for Obama, I guarantee you, would not engage in any of this without his knowledge and approval. And I'll tell you one other thing. The Comeys and the McCabe's, the Clappers and the Brennans and all these people were doing what they were doing to please Obama. Some of them might have been using their own initiative, but it was all to impress Obama. Remember, all these people think the guy is a deity. He's godlike, and he promotes people regarding him that way. So you have a bunch of sycophants here desperate to impress him, desperate to be in the inner circle. They know that he thinks he's smarter than all of them, so what they want to do is try to show him how smart they are. But the idea that they would go rogue and start a massive coup operation like this on their own is unthinkable. Doesn't make any sense. They would tell him because they would want to brag about their efforts. They would tell him because they would want to brag about their intelligence in being able to put together and implement an operation like this. They would want Obama to be impressed. But Rush, what about plausible deniability? I mean, you do things so if it blows up, the president is protected because he wasn't told. Not relevant here. They never thought this was going to blow up. These people didn't go into this thinking that it wasn't going to work. They went into this, they were thrilled, they were excited, they were self-impressed. They thought that they would get rid of Trump before he was inaugurated, folks. They thought they were going to get rid of Trump during the transition. Well, they thought they were going to get rid of Trump before the election. He confounded that by winning So during the transition, they think they're going to be able to create enough doubt that the Republicans or somebody was, you know what, maybe this guy's not fit for it, maybe whatever. They were dreaming. And then when that failed, here comes the January 5th meeting in the Oval Office with Obama. One last-ditch effort to try to damage Trump within the realm of public opinion before he's inaugurated by plotting how they can get the Steele dossier into the news, into the public domain. That meeting happened on January 5th, the Obama Oval Office. And then, of course, you add the unmasking of Flynn to all this and the numbers of Obama people who wanted to know who he was. You know, there's something really curious about this, too. The conversation that Flynn had with the Soviet ambassador who goes to lunch all the time, Sergei Kislyak, that conversation that was wiretapped was on December 29th. Now, there may have been more than one conversation, but if you look at the dates of many of the unmasking requests, you'll find that they are December 15th, 16th, 17th, 14th. Well, what the hell? There wasn't anything to unmask them. There were people that we've never heard of that supposedly were requesting Flynn to be unmasked in these conversations. My point is there was a plan in motion designed to get Flynn and get him out of the way long before any phone call he had with any Russian that supposedly sent up alarm bells and red flags. None of this happened as they want you to believe it. This was a targeted operation that had been implemented months before December of 2000. I got a program called Fresh Air. One of their correspondents was reporting on a new biography of the American author Philip Roth. Now, in uber left-wing literary salons and circles in Manhattan, Philip Roth is the end-all, the be-all. He's the Stephen Sondheim of the literary world. And so somebody's written a biography of the guy. And of all things, here is one of the stories told by the author.
Taylor also recounts some of Roth's health struggles. Among other things, he suffered from back and heart problems. Taylor recalls one particular trip to the hospital with Roth where they jumped into a cab. The aggressively flatulent driver had Rush Limbaugh on at top volume. Roth, in pain, turned to Taylor and asked, "Are we to be spared nothing?"
Yeah, the author here is Benjamin Taylor. So here you have Philip Roth, a great American novelist, great American writer, getting in a cab to go to a hospital for a health crisis, gets in a cab, and the cab driver's flatulent. Now, for those of you in Rio Linda, it means the cab driver is stinking up the cab pretty bad. And to add insult to injury, while the cab driver's stinking up the cab, the Rush Limbaugh program is blaring at 800 decibels in there. And Philip Roth is dispirited. He's already down in the dumps because of his health problems, made even worse, and turns to his biographer and says, "Are we to be spared nothing?" The World Health Organization is now warning, my friends, it could take up to 5 years before the coronavirus pandemic is under control. You know what this is starting to sound like? This whole coronavirus story is starting to remind me of climate change. Rising sea levels in the next 10 years could wipe out New York and Miami. Then that doesn't happen. Rising sea levels in the next 20 years could wipe out New York, Miami, and maybe even Philadelphia. The predictions keep changing. They get more dire. They get more dangerous, more extreme. And the reason for it is they're not able to scare people sufficiently about the impending doom. I mean, climate change has supposedly been going to destroy us. I mean, the first
that I found, I've researched it, the first climate change story that was written in the same way stories today are written, early 1900s in a New York Times story. It's eerie, folks. It's literally eerie how similar a story about the climate and our inability to control it in the early 1900s sounds so much like the garbage that's in the media about it today. Well, the modern era of the climate change movement begins late 1978, 79 with a Newsweek cover story on how the new ice age is coming. 5 years later, they dump ice age and instead transition to global warming. We're all going to melt. CO2, pollution, answer rate, whatever, is going to destroy the planet, destroy the life support systems of our atmosphere. And so since the 1980s, they have been saying dire consequences await if we do nothing. And the predictions are all for different periods of time, 30 years today, 30 years from now, 40 years in the next 50 years. The predictions are long-term because they know people alive today won't be alive at the end of the prediction period to judge whether they were right or wrong. So it's nothing but a scare move. It's a scare tactic, a series of them. And you are aware of the transformation this story, this cause of climate change has gone through. I mean, it gets ridiculous sometimes. The predictions that are made, the warnings, the things that are going to kill us. And I'm noting a similar type of reporting now with the coronavirus. It seems like every day we get some new scare tactic from some supposedly credible source. And what generally happens is after some reporting of what everybody would consider good news, in less than a day, a couple of stories come along, maybe three, that try to throw cold water on the good news and make it sound even worse than it was the day before. And that's what this is. The World Health Organization warns it could take up to 5 years before the coronavirus pandemic is under control. This is just, it's irresponsible the way this stuff is being reported, and the reason it's being reported the way it is because it's all political now. Let's review. The first objective was to what? Flatten the curve. And let me ask all of you a question. When the lockdown was first announced, when the shutdown nationwide was first announced, when it was first proclaimed, when you were told you couldn't leave your home, when you were told you had to maintain a distance of 6 feet whenever you're talking to anybody, when you were told you had to wear a mask, when you were told whatever, did you think, were you led to believe that the shutdown would still be going on 9 weeks, 10 weeks later? Or did you think it was a 2 to 3 week exercise to try to get a handle on things before things got out of control? I'll guarantee you the vast majority of people thought it was a temporary thing. It's why there was so much acquiescence to it. The first thing they told us was, we got to flatten the curve. That's right. And we're going to do this with mitigation. Became the #1 most used word at the coronavirus task force here. Mitigation. We're going to socially distance. We're going to limit the number of people that get the disease. And why? Because we need to make sure the hospitals and the emergency rooms and the intensive care units are not overwhelmed. So we got to flatten the curve. A lot of people misunderstood that. They thought flattening the curve meant we're going to arrest the spread of the virus. It's never what it was about. But a lot of people thought that. A lot of people thought that they were participating patriotically, supportively in an effort designed to stop the virus in its tracks, when that wasn't the objective because it wasn't possible.
You simply can't stop the spread of a virus by staying home. You're eventually going to leave home, and then everything is just going to pick up where it was left off. No, the purpose, flattening the curve, was to make sure the hospitals were not overwhelming. Guess what? They weren't, other than in 2 or 3 states. But even those states were not overwhelmed anywhere near what the predictions were. All of the temporary hospitals that were floated in there and that were built, the Javits Center in Central Park, were never used. Then after they told us that we had to flatten the curve, then we had to follow the data. We can't do what we want, and we can't listen to charlatans, and we can't listen to people that are not experts. We have to follow the data. Well, the data was a bunch of flawed model predictions that have yet to be right about anything. But that became the Bible, the data. From all of these models in the UK and the University of Washington, who and which to this day have yet to be right. Then, after being told that we had to follow the data, we can't end this lockdown. We can't go out. We can't return to normal until we have testing. Well, they didn't say anything about testing when they were flattening the curve. At every opportunity to end this lockdown, which is unsustainable, at every opportunity to turn this country around, no, we can't do it until X, until we flatten the curve, till the data gives us clearance. Now we can't do it till we have more testing. So Trump has ramped up. We got more testing available in America than anywhere in the world. Trump points it out. Why is this a competition to you, Mr. Orange Man? When people are dying, what does it matter that we have more testing than anybody? Because you people have been whining and moaning that we don't have enough of this stuff. And I'm telling you, we got all the ventilators we need. We got all the N95 masks we need. We got all of the testing that we need. But we can't reopen without more testing. And the more testing we get, it's amazing how not enough testing it is. Now we got to have testing for everybody every day. Until that happens, we can't open. And of course, testing has its own quirks attached to it. The more you test, guess what? The more cases you have. So they are then allowed to report skyrocketing cases. They never attribute it to the fact that more people are being tested, because the scare tactic is to make you think the virus is out of control. The virus isn't out of control anymore now that it ever has been. We're just able to find out more people who have it. You know what else? The more testing you do and the more people you reveal who have the virus, the mortality rate plunges. 98% of the people that get this virus recover from it. You would never know that if you listen to the drive-by Democrat Party news every day. So we get more testing, and then it becomes not enough. We have enough that we need to test everybody every day. And then they say, well, testing somebody one day doesn't tell us anything about the next day. Yeah, we know, but you're the ones that said we can't do anything about testing. Yeah, I know. But testing only goes so far. Now we need antibodies. We need an antibody test. Testing it, they keep moving the goalposts on us. Now we can't do anything until we get a vaccine. No, we can't open the schools. We can't go back to stadiums. Can't do anything until we get a vaccine. Now, all of a sudden, after all this time where we were told that youths and young people were among the least affected, guess what? Here come stories. Oh, no, young people are getting a mysterious strain of the disease that we hadn't seen. But it's just incredible. Now people are having strokes and they can't figure out why. Oh, my God, this virus every day unleashes a new characteristic that we didn't know. We can't open now.
says the World Health Organization, for 5 years. Right here. Could take up to 5 years before the coronavirus pandemic is under control. Well, I guess Dr. Fauci is not going to authorize reopening if the virus is not under control. So we had to flatten the curve, we had to follow the data of flawed models. You need more testing, so we got more testing. It's not enough. We need even more testing. Now that's not enough. We need antibodies. Oh, that doesn't mean anything anymore. Now we need a vaccine. There may never be a vaccine. So they keep putting the roadblocks. It's just like what they do with this climate change stuff, folks. As every dire prediction fails to scare people enough, they come up with more. And some of it is investigate reports of coronavirus causing strokes in younger patients. Just when we thought it was safe for kids, oh no, strokes. Yes, my friends, so they've convinced us that old people are at risk, but they're gradually working on spreading the risk to virtually every age group, every demographic, all 3 sexes. Well, now it's about 20 sexes, I guess. All religions, whatever. In other words, my friends, no one is safe. We're all dead. It's only a matter of time, which, of course, is a gigantic truism. Senators Amy Klobuchar, Marco Rubio of Florida are asking the CDC to assess the risk of strokes in younger and middle-aged coronavirus patients. We believe it's critical that the CDC evaluate the prevalence of stroke in COVID-19 patients, including the potential link to stroke from the development of blood clots caused by the virus. Well. You see, my friends, there's no hiding from it. There's no escape for those of you in Rio Linda. Escape for the rest of you. Let me squeeze a quick phone call in before we have to abandon the content portion of the program for this hour. Scott in Pittsburgh. Great to have you, sir. Hello.
Hello, sir. Continued prayers for your good health. I hope everything works out for you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you very much. I appreciate that.
Thank you. Okay, quickly, on to your point about the experts claiming climate change, and they claim that they have decades and hundreds of years of evidence. And then they turn around and they say that I'm an expert on coronavirus. Well, how can you be an expert on coronavirus if this is something that's new? There's no science behind it.
That is a very good question. They're not claiming to be experts in coronavirus, per se. They're claiming to be experts in public health. They are experts in medicine. They are experts in public policy. They are experts in whatever. But you're right. Coronavirus is new. The only experts in the coronavirus we know are the Chi-Coms, and they're not talking.
Exactly, yes. Yep, I was listening to you, and you had mentioned about the experts with the climate change, and that just came to mind as far as the coronavirus.
Well,
you're going to say that we need to do all this stuff.
This program inspires thought out there. That's one of the things I'm most proud of. I'm happy to hear that. I'm just talking about the way the media, folks. Well, not just the media, but the activists, the progression, the outrage. We don't know anything about the virus yet. Look at all the. This is no different than the Trump-Russia collusion story. One lie after another. It's not a lot of Republicans' favorite Republican senator. Many people think he allows himself to be walked all over by Mark Warner, who is the ranking Democrat on the Intelligence Committee. But Senator Burr got into deep doo-doo because turns out that he sold a bunch of stock positions right before the market crashed because of the coronavirus. And it was suspected that he thus and therefore had inside information. So there has been action taken against him by the FBI. Now, I know a lot of people think that Senator Burr deserves this because he obviously did something.
and I'm not, I don't know about his culpability. I don't know about this, but folks, I just have to tell you something. After everything we've learned this week about corrupt Democrats, the FBI pops yet another Republican. Now, he may deserve it. I don't know. But the idea that all of these Democrats are running around essentially scot-free with just a bunch of lip service from Republicans about how we're not going to put up with this, we're going to investigate, we're going to have hearings, this cannot stand. And while we do all this huffing and puffing and all this talking, they keep taking Republicans out. Now, a lot of people are curious, how the hell did the FBI collect any information on Senator Burr? The best I have been able to learn is that the FBI got a copy of iCloud data that belonged to him. He's the backup of his iPhone. So he has an iPhone, and he uses iCloud. And I don't even know if he knows it or not. I don't know how techie people are, but the default position is that your phone and your iPad will back up to iCloud automatically. Now, it's not a full backup of things, but it is a backup of data. They don't back up the apps, because if you need to restore those, that'll happen from the App Store. But it is a backup of data. And apparently the FBI got a copy of iCloud data belonging to Senator Burr after serving Apple a warrant compelling Apple to hand over the data. So they didn't have to get into his phone. If they had gone to Apple and asked for a way, like a back door or a way into his phone without knowing whether he's fingerprint ID or face ID, or whether they knew his 4 or 6 digit code, Apple would have refused that. Apple's been refusing those kind of requests ever since they've been made. The FBI, anybody else, local police authorities have been asking Apple for a back door into the devices, a back door into the operating system software, and Apple says no. But if you show up at Apple, if you're FBI and you've got a warrant, then apparently they can turn over your iCloud backup data. So the FBI used the data in Senator Burr's iCloud backup to obtain another warrant to then seize his phone as part of the investigation into whether the senator broke the law to profit from the coronavirus crisis. Los Angeles Times says Senator Burr sold a significant percentage of his stock portfolio in 33 different transactions on February 13th, just as his committee was receiving daily coronavirus briefings, and a week before the stock market declined sharply. Much of the stock was Burr's stock invested in businesses that in subsequent weeks were hit hard by the plunging market. You remember when this happened. I mean, people were livid. Burr escaped massive losses by selling his positions before the market tanked. He turned over his phone to agents after they served a search warrant on him at his residence in Washington. Now, the official here, the FBI, is saying all this on condition of anonymity because he's not allowed to speak about it. But that's not stopping him, is it? Such a warrant being served on a sitting U.S. senator would require approval from the highest ranks of the Justice Department. And it's a step that would not be taken lightly. Carrie Kupik, Justice Department spokeswoman, declined to comment. Well, guess who runs the DOJ? A bunch of Republicans. I guess Senator Burr is a Republican. So this is what I'm saying. He may be guilty. I don't know. That's not. But with all that we are learning about Democrats and their culpability and the literal criminal activity they have been undertaking for the last 3.5 years, and another Republican gets popped here by a Republican DOJ. A second law enforcement official said that FBI agents served a warrant in recent days on Apple to obtain information from Burr's iCloud accounts. That agents used data obtained from Apple and the iCloud account as part of the evidence used to obtain the warrant for his phone. Now, they may have his phone, but unless he participates and cooperates, they don't have a way into it. He's going to either have to unlock it himself with his face. I don't know what kind of phone he has. If he's got an iPhone 10 class, then of course that's Face ID. If he has anything prior to an iPhone 10, then he is dealing with fingerprint ID. So, but regardless, Apple will not help the FBI unlock anybody's phone per se. Well, if you want to keep your stuff secret, don't freaking break the law, number one. But number two, that won't protect you if you're a Republican. They'll come after you anyway. So, yeah, you might want to be, I'm not going to sit here and tell you to turn off your iCloud backup. I'm just telling you that's how they found what they wanted from Burr. I'm just telling you that they didn't need to get into his phone. And they can't get into his phone without his help. And if you don't want to use the iCloud backup, there's other ways to back up your phone. The primary reason for an iCloud backup, aside from having a backup, is when you get a new phone or new iPad, it's the easiest thing in the world now to set up the new phone using that backup. But you don't even need an iCloud backup anymore. Because with the release of iOS 13 last September, you now have another way to set up a new device called transfer. And the options presented to you, put the phone side by side. When you get the new phone, put the old phone to the left, new phone on the right, swap the SIM cards, and go through the process of setting up a new phone, and eventually you'll see all you need to do to pair the two phones, essentially. You get an option to transfer. And what that does is wirelessly transfer everything on your old phone to the new phone. And it doesn't use a backup of any kind. It doesn't restore from it. It literally clones the phone. It takes about an hour and a half max, depending on how much you have on your phone. And it sends everything. It sends your passwords, all of your Wi-Fi passwords, your app passwords, your website passwords, so that when it finishes, your new phone is a clone. So you don't even need an iCloud backup now to restore a new device. So, yeah, you would be, but I'm not going to sit here and tell people to zap the iCloud backup. Don't, whatever you do, don't do that because of me. Now, yesterday, folks, I told you about this great new coffee mug from Ember. I got it as a Christmas present. I had never heard of it. I didn't know what it was. All I knew was that I used to serve myself coffee in one of the Tervis tumblers that we make available at the EIB store because it's insulated. And, of course, it keeps things hotter longer, and it keeps things colder longer and doesn't sweat when you put ice cubes in there. But still, hot beverages cool off to the point that you get half what's left in the mug undrinkable because it's gotten room temp cold. So I get this gift, and it's a mug. This is, I'll hold it up here at the Ditto Cam. This is the 14-ounce version, and it goes on a saucer that is a charger. A full charge lasts about an hour, hour and a half. And there's an app for your phone that you use to pair the mug with your phone. It uses Bluetooth. And after you do that, you can then select the temperature that you want the beverage, and you can select it for coffee, for tea, hot chocolate, whatever. There are default temperatures for all of those, but you can change them. And you can watch it work. The iPhone app will tell you and show you as the temperature is approaching whatever you've set it to be. The cool thing about this is that after your desired temperature has been hit, it doesn't cook the coffee. That was the one thing I was leery about, because the old days of a coffee maker at home or an office, and you put it on the burner, and it stays there. You know, after it's been on the burner all day, the coffee in the pot is yucco because it's cooked. It's burnt. And I thought, well, how can this not end up being the same way? But it doesn't cook it. It keeps it tasting as fresh in 2 hours as right when you poured it out of the pot. Like, I've had this mug here half full for probably since the show started, for an hour. I've maybe had one sip of it. Now, normally I'd have to throw this out because it'd be cool. It'd be too room temperature. But it's just like I poured it out of a freshly made pot right now. Now, the one I was given developed a problem. It would not, well, I don't think it was charging properly, and the mechanism, the flashing lights on the mug, change colors based on what's happening. Certain color when your desired temperature's been hit, certain color when the mug is charging, certain color when a full charge has been hit. And my lights were not going through the full spectrum, so I never knew. But you can check the charge on the app on the iPhone. Anyway, I was having a problem. I got hold of customer service, and they were awesome. They were just, you know, customer service is, that to me is where many companies make it. And they ended up sending me a replacement. I didn't even ask for it. It came in a couple days ago. They sent me the 14-ounce one because they had my data. You have to fill out the data when you make a customer service call or email like I did. But I had found a workaround for the one that I didn't think was working. I just leave it on the saucer. Therefore, it's constantly charging and stays full charge. But you can take it off the saucer, walk around for an hour, and it will keep the temperature that you've set. And it's ember. I got this note from a friend. Rush, those ember mugs really work. You were talking about them yesterday. They really work. I'm gonna buy 2 of them if they do. No, they don't work. I was lying through my teeth. These ember mugs are... What do you mean was I telling the truth? You would not believe how often that... Let me tell you the truth about something else. I have come across a first-time author who is fantastic. Name is Christopher Russo. He's got 2 new books out. He's one of these guys. He's been working his whole life while dreaming about being an author. And it's what it's his hobby, his passion. He's always wanted to do what he wasn't doing. So he finally sat down and actually, without having a publisher deal or anything, sat down and wrote a thriller novel about terrorism and sailboat races and so forth. And a very unlikely hero is an FBI statistician and is not an agent who is thrust into the role of becoming an agent. And James Patterson is a golf buddy, a bunch of us here, and Christopher's dad took the manuscript to James Patterson and just say, would you read this? You know, you're the best in the business at this stuff. Tell me what you think. And Patterson raved about it. In fact, James Patterson said, this book is so good, I can't even show it to my publisher. My publisher might throw me overboard if he saw this. He was joking. But Patterson has raved about it. It's got a blurb quote on the cover. Now, it's available in ebook and paperback right now, self-published. And it's available at both at Amazon and Kindle, the Kindle store, and Apple iBooks. The ebook version, like only $2.49. The paperback versions are at $18.50, and there are 2 of them. There's a 2-book series. The first one is called False Assurances, and the second one, what did I do with? I must have thrown away book 2 is Threat Bias. And anyway, it's about a very unlikely hero, an FBI statistician. He's a systems operation guy. He's not an agent. He's overweight. He's the lack of everything you think of when you get an FBI agent. He gets thrust into a case because everybody else is occupied on the job of the presidential visit in Boston. He gets thrust into it. He's the only guy who sees the potential threat here in his office and forces his way onto the case. And I'll tell you, I could not stop reading the book. It got to be about 1:30 in the morning, and I had to put it down, and I couldn't quit. So if you're at home and you are looking for things to do, TV reruns have started now. You've seen everything there. You really ought to get, I mean, I remember when Joel Rosenberg wrote his first book. Remember Mr. Snerdley? Joel Rosenberg worked at the Limbaugh Letter. He wrote a novel. He brought it into me. And, okay, I have to read this to be nice. And I couldn't put it down. This is the same. This is exactly, the book is called False Assurances. It's the first in a 2-book set. Paperback, 18 bucks. The e-book is 4. I mean, you can't afford not to have these things. But they are really, really good. I don't know what else I can tell you. I had to work hard last night to stop reading and go to bed. I'm about halfway through the first. Christopher Rosso is again the author and the budding up-and-comer who impressed the heck out of James Patterson. Doug, great to have you on the EIB network. Hello.
Oh, Rush Limbaugh, it is my pleasure to talk to you. Thank you for taking my call.
You bet. Great to have you here. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Prayers to you every day. I wanted to talk to you and say that you are correct. The Democratic states are definitely being held hostage at this point with their stay-at-home orders.
No question about it.
I am from Washington State. Jay Inslee is our governor, and Donald Trump was correct. He is a snake. In our state, I don't know about any other state, but he has implemented contact tracing. The National Guard.
Whoa. He has implemented it already?
Absolutely. It's supposed to begin tomorrow. It is on the Washington State page. He comes on every day and talks to us about it. I'm not sure the legalities of it, but he is doing it.
Wait. Forget the legalities. How does it work?
Here's how it works, Rush. He hires probably about 3,500 contact tracers. These are folks from the National Guard, the Department of Health, the DMV. They will be coming to your homes, and they will be knocking on your door and asking if they could take and test you for COVID. Say you don't want to be tested. There are going to be measures taken if you decide not to cooperate.
Now, the reason that doesn't sound explicitly like what contact tracing is. But look, hang on. Vancouver, Washington. Jolene, let me explain to you how contact tracing is going to work. I could be wrong. I don't think it's been implemented yet. It is a plan that has been offered jointly by Apple and Google and involves a cell phone. Both people have to be a cell phone. What happens is that you go about your life and you interact with people, and somehow, because of the tech, you'll have an app on the phone that will have all kinds of stuff to it. You have to agree to all this, that if you encounter somebody with the virus, you'll find out. Or if you have it, they will find out. And it's because of the contact that you have. It's one of the ways of finding out who's walking around with the virus. And there's a lot of people really upset about this that don't think this is kosher. That's a violation of privacy. A lot of people are speaking out against it. People say, what the hell are Google and Apple trying to really accomplish by jointly going into this? It sounds like what's happening where you live is they've just got an army of 3,500 people that are going to storm your homes and demand to test you. And if you don't agree, then what are they going to do? Punish you somehow? What happens if you refuse to be tested?
If you refuse to be tested, I believe they could then their tactics become they can get a arrest warrant. They can I've read the details a couple times, but they could come in. If they decide that your child has COVID or a parent has COVID in the home, they can take the child to there's 3 facilities that they have ready in Washington State to take, I suppose, children or anyone that needs to be isolated in a area outside the home. It's very disturbing here, Rush, in Washington State, what's happening. A lot of people are very, very nervous. Our governor has taken over as a dictator in some sorts, and it's becoming increasingly stressful, increasingly, restaurants are going to be required. We can open restaurants, but they're going to be required to take our name, our address, and our emails.
Right.
I mean, that's an invasion of our privacy, and that is just another way to not let these businesses succeed.
Well, yeah,
so,
that is going to keep a lot of people out of these restaurants. They're not going to show up at all if they have to give over their contact data to the state, to the authorities, as though they're guilty of something by showing up at a restaurant, for crying out loud.
Yes.
Now, are you certain that they can take your kid away from you if the kid tests positive? I've got to be very careful here, because I haven't seen that, and anybody can call here and say anything and be wrong accidentally. I got to be very guarded on that kind. I've not seen that Governor Inslee has a bunch of people who will take people's kids and babies away if they test positive.
Yeah, I guess if I could put you on speakerphone, I could read some of the things that I have, but I can't put you on speakerphone. But it is disturbing here in Washington State. We wish we could get some help from somebody. Jay Inslee is just going overboard with his stay-home orders. This thing may be getting blown out of proportion. With it is quite scary though to think that he's hiring people from the National Guard and all that, and they are great people. They are like you and I. Don't get me wrong, and they're going to just be doing a job. But it is a little disturbing when you hear the things that they're. I could send you some things. You can look some things up on the Washington State legislative page. Just some things that he's implementing. So yeah, very scary.
Well, I'm very aware of Governor Inslee and his politics, and I'm very aware of his proclivities and so forth. And I'm not. Look, I'm just have to be careful. Anybody can call here. Please don't be insulted, but anybody can call here and say anything. And I just haven't heard that the governor of the state of Washington has facilitated a bunch of stormtroopers to go take people's babies out of their houses if they're testing. But you could well be right, but I've got to find out for myself. The thing that I would say is that, sadly, you are probably in the minority in your state. I mean, the people of that state elected this guy. And I'll tell you what I've been looking for. All of these blue states, I'm not seeing anybody revolting there. I mean, California, L.A. County, just shut down through the entire summer yesterday. And all I see is acquiescence to it. I don't see anybody bent out of shape about it. I don't see anybody revolting. I don't see any revolution. I don't see anybody particularly upset about it. They just sit there and take it. Same thing in the state of Washington. You're probably in the minority. People that did not vote for the guy, would not vote for the guy, and don't like him. But the majority of people did. And so he's not getting a whole lot of pushback. Elections have consequences and all of that. Anyway, I appreciate the call, and I feel for it. This whole blue state situation is so obvious to me. They are willing to do whatever they can, these governors are, to thwart a nationwide economic recovery, all in the service of the project to defeat and get rid of President Trump. Marty in Orlando, Florida, you're next. Great to have you on the EIB network. Hello.
Hello, Rush. Ditto's from Orlando.
Thank you, sir.
In reference to the judge in the Flynn case, how does a person in the judicial branch of government ignore decisions from the executive branch when it comes to dropping the Flynn case and appoint a former federal judge to, in essence, be a prosecutor, and that person has no affiliation with the executive branch? How is this not a separation of powers issue?
It is. And he's going to do it until somebody tells him he can't, until somebody stops him or thwarts him. In fact, the Supreme Court ruled unanimously just last week against the improper use of amicus briefs. Now, unfortunately, the Supreme Court's list of examples did not include cases like this, where prosecutors simply dropped the case. But the majority opinion, unanimous, written by Ruth Buzzy Ginsburg, made plain your exact point. The executive branch rules and dominates here, and all of this amicus stuff, bringing in amici, friends of the court, to thwart and turn judges into activists is unconstitutional and not to be permitted. And this judge is going to do it anyway until somebody makes him stop. This is a political move. It's not judicial. And you're absolutely right. He's bringing in somebody who's already biased, has already judged the outcome of the case because he wrote a Washington Post op-ed about this. This is why Judge Sullivan chose this clown. His name is Gleason. And what's going to happen here is two things. He's either going to try to play this out as long as he can and delay the adjudication of this, hoping that Trump loses, so that a Democrat wins the White House, gets a new attorney general, and then reactivates the Flynn case. Or he's going to go ahead and sentence Flynn to serve jail time on the basis that Flynn has pled guilty and that he's not going to let the Department of Justice throw the case away or drop it. The purpose of that would be to force a presidential pardon. And I think both of these possibilities are active. I think Judge Sullivan, clearly an activist judge, these people, for what we have no idea why they despise this guy, Flynn. And the Obama people despise this guy. There's something behind this that we don't know yet. The reasons for destroying this guy, it's got to be something that he knows or might talk about. They are clearly trying to intimidate this guy into whatever happens with his case, to never saying a word about it again. They are purposely not letting him up for air. They are continuing to smother this guy, to frighten, to scare, to threaten, to intimidate, however they can. And you know what? I think the sooner we get to where Trump just announces a pardon, but to be done with it, and then go after the judge within the parameters of the law, if that's what's called for here. But go ahead and announce a pardon and end this, because that's where this is headed anyway. I'll guarantee you, if they sentence Flynn based on his guilty plea, which was coerced, his guilty plea was made to stop the destruction of his family and his son. He pled guilty falling on a sword, in other words. He did not plead guilty because he did anything, because he didn't. He did not lie to the FBI. You know what? It may be useful for me to tell you how this all began with Flynn. I can do it very briefly because I'm a master communicator. So I will do that. We get back rid of him. We now know, because of documents that have been released, that they were chatting among themselves about what their objective with Flynn was. Do we want to get him fired? Do we want him caught in a perjury trap where we prosecute him? What is our objective here? These were questions going back and forth, and it was decided that they would try to get him fired, to get rid of him. So he is completely unaware of any of these plans. As far as Michael Flynn's concerned, he's the national security advisor. Trump is the president, and the FBI is on their side. The FBI and law enforcement, DOJ, all under the executive branch umbrella. We're all of the same team. We're out after the same bad guys. Flynn has no idea that he's being targeted. So James Comey, who has bragged about this to Nicole Wallace on MSNBC, said he decided to send a couple agents to the White House to conduct a criminal interview with Flynn, but not tell him that that's what was happening. So they sent Peter Strzok and another agent to go just have a conversation, and they ran into Flynn in the hallway in the West Wing. And they just started talking to him about things.
And Flynn had no idea. They did not tell him it was an official interview. They did not tell him that he needed a lawyer. They started asking him about his conversation with the Russian ambassador, which was totally unnecessary. That conversation had happened on December 29th, and they had the transcript of it. They had already unmasked Flynn. They knew everything he said to the Russian ambassador. And yet they're asking him about the conversation anyway, hoping that he says something that's different than what's on the transcript. So then they can say, he's lying to us. They set him up. And even in those circumstances, when this interview was over, even Strzok went back to the FBI. I don't think the guy lied to us.
But even though the interviewing agents said that they didn't think Flynn lied, since the purpose was to get him in a perjury trap, they told him that he did. They accused him of lying to the agents. Comey was asked about this. He said, well, you know, we only able to do it because it was a new administration, and they're not sophisticated in how these things work. Had it been the Obama administration or the Bush administration, I would have never even tried this. I would have never gotten away with it. But this administration didn't know enough to tell my agents that they had to go arrange a chat with Flynn with the White House counsel. This administration was new. They didn't know how things operated. But more importantly, the administration had no idea that the FBI was working to get rid of Flynn and to get rid of Trump. They knew there was some Russian investigation going on, but the FBI had been lying to Trump for weeks about the fact that he wasn't a target. So Flynn was not told he needed a lawyer. He was denied due process. He wasn't even told he was being criminally interviewed. He was asked questions about a conversation that the FBI agents already had a transcript for. There was no reason to ask him about this unless they're trying to set up a process crime of perjury, which is exactly what happened. This is what Flynn pled guilty to. Lying to these two agents that were part of a setup, and even after the interview, they admitted they didn't think Flynn had lied. Judge Sullivan knows all this. Everybody in this case knows what an abject miscarriage of justice and malpractice on the part of the FBI and the DOJ regarding Flynn this was. And they are still trying to railroad the guy. And what I told you is among the many reasons that the Attorney General has dropped the case. There is no predicate. There was no Trump-Russia collusion. Flynn hadn't done anything. He did not give away American secrets talking to the Russian ambassador. He did not attempt to undermine Obama's so-called sanctions that he had placed on Russia in December of 2016. This was entirely set up and manufactured. Barr finds out about it as part of the Durham investigation. He knew it before then. Throws the case out on the basis that there isn't a case. They have never had a case against Flynn. But Russia pled guilty. After wiping him out, folks. After taking away his home in legal fees. After having his son be threatened with the same kind of treatment. He pled guilty to save his family. He pled guilty to fall on the sword. Judge Sullivan knows this, too. Judge Sullivan knows all of this. And by the way, this is the Cliff Notes version. I'm giving you the essence of it because I have the talent and the ability. I'm a master communicator. Most people take them 30 minutes to tell you what I just squeezed in here in a matter of 5 minutes. This is how outrageous this is. With Comey on television bragging about how easy it was to set Flynn up because this new administration was a bunch of neophyte, unsophisticated boogers that had the slightest idea what was going on. They were so easy to set up. They were so easy to fool. They were so easy to lie to. And the audience is applauding Comey as he says this stuff to Nicole Wallace. It was a live show on MSNBC. Sounded like he was looking forward to the day when all I saw was prison. And so here I am, 50, 60 some odd years later, doing what I was born to do. Great to have you with us. Wouldn't be possible without you. What's that? Snurdly. The name of the book is False Assurances. Snurdly keeps purposely getting... Christopher Rosso. I recommended there's 2 books, actually, in this series. First-time author, talk about pursuing a dream. He's just wanted to be a writer his whole life and finally tried it. And self-publishing on Amazon and iBooks at Apple. And they're great. I mean, first one is False Assurances, and I literally had trouble stopping reading this to go to bed last night. Anyway, False Assurances. No, it's about an FBI systems analyst. You know, he's not an agent. He's an overweight, just the entire opposite of what you think of when you think of FBI agent. He's thrust into the role of an agent because of an event that happens when everybody's out of the office planning for a presidential visit to Boston. He's thrust into this. It's a case that nobody thinks is going to amount to anything anyway. So this guy is given, his name is Ben Porter. He's given the case because everybody thinks he's a schlub, and it doesn't matter. And it turns out to be a huge thing. And once this book gets going, I'm telling you, and I read ebooks now, and there's no turning pages, but you swipe on the iPad, and I'm swiping like crazy pages. So, and Snurdly keeps goading me here with the title, False Assurances. The second book, same character, is called Threat Bias. Now, I went and looked. The TV show Pennyworth, you're talking about, this is the how the butler to Batman. I tried, man. I tried. I couldn't get past a 3rd episode of this thing. I don't know why. Why did you think I would love that series? It bored the hell out of me. I stuck with it hoping that the next episode would be something in this to keep me there. It failed to connect with me. Pennyworth, that's the name of Batman's butler, right? Bruce Wayne's butler. And it's how he got started before he became how he became the butler. No, I think I got through two episodes, maybe 3. I mean, I still got it. I mean, I can still pick it up. No. Well, you can't compare this to Tiger Case or whatever. Tiger what? Tiger King. You can't. You're not comparing this to Tiger King. Oh, there's no compare. Don't. No, Tiger King, I couldn't even get through the first episode. Tiger King is the kind of show that makes me think the country's doomed. Tiger King is the kind of show that makes me think I've been wasting my time here for 30 years. Tiger King is the kind of show that makes me think that none of what happens here or on Fox or anywhere else matters because the country is a bunch of absolute dumb... I better watch. Nothing to write home about country. And the fact that it now is the most watched, or was for a while in history. All right, well, anyway, actually, I did not act on my fears. I mean, I continue to have great hope and faith in the country. I'm just saying this stuff to be fun. But that show, that Tiger King, that is the kind of show that can't possibly be happening in our country. That's got to be happening somewhere else. And you find out, no, it's happening not only not in the country, it's happening right up the road here in Florida. Jeez. Okay. Now, I looked up what's going on in the state of Washington. We had a nice woman call claiming that Governor Inslee, who really is You know, I don't think the elevator goes top floor there. An order of fries short of a Happy Meal. Looks like a palooka. I knew didn't stand a chance in the Democrat primary. There was a big climate change, global warming. That was his signature. But the woman calls it, he's implementing new policies, contact tracing, and he's going to send the National Guard to everybody's homes. And if your baby tests positive, they're taking the baby out of the house. I said, wait. I stopped her there. I said, I haven't heard that. I got to be very guarded here because anybody can call and say anything. And some people sound authoritative when they say things. And I have to be very careful about it. And I've had a number of people who have since communicated. Rush, guarantee you, if any governor had set up such a policy, you would have been hearing about it because there's no way responsible mother and father are going to let some state-appointed goon come in and take their baby away from it. It just isn't going to happen. If somebody had tried it, you'd have heard about it by now. But here is what I did find in the contact tracing. And in California, I'm told they have hired upwards of 30,000 people as contact tracers. It is a way to identify people who have COVID-19 and either know it or don't know it. But it's a way to identify them so that action can be taken one way or the other. So it's in the state of Washington. But before I get to that, Apple and Google have joined forces to try to assist in the objective of the program contact tracing. And I, frankly, I haven't read, when I've seen the stories, I've seen the blog posts on it, I haven't taken the time to delve into them deeply. So I'm not informed enough to tell you exactly how the Apple-Google plan works. But from what I have gathered, it will require apps on your phone. You're not identified, per se. I mean, there's not... Your phone is transmitting data about you, but not... It's anonymized. It's not tied to your name, they say. And it is a way for people who are carrying the virus. It's a way to learn who they have been in contact with so that those people can be notified that you have been in contact with this schlub over here who was walking around with the virus, and you might not have known it. So you need to go get tested now. So it's being presented as a compassionate way of tracking carriers and informing the unsuspecting victims of the carrier. So the way it works in the state of Washington, there's a little graphic here that they have set up, and it's a 5-step process whereby they attempt to isolate carriers of the virus and keep them at home. It's confinement upon first symptoms. The minute you become aware that you've got the virus, you are immediately confined. And then whoever you've been in contact with is learned. And that's what your phone does. Your phone keeps a record by way of Bluetooth and NFC. Your phone, because of the apps that'll be on it, keeps a record of who you've get in contact. Don't mean you've texted them. You've walked past them. You have been within 6 feet of them. It doesn't mean that you've sent them an email. It doesn't mean you've sent them a text. It means that you were within a certain proximity to them. This is what the Google and Apple apps will do. And so after you begin suffering symptoms, you confine, and then whoever you've come in contact with is learned, and they are informed that they have been in contact with somebody carrying the virus. And if they are also symptomatic, then they are to confine themselves. And then testing continues throughout the next 2 weeks of all these people that have been identified as having been in contact with somebody who has the virus and is carrying it. So, but it requires both Bluetooth and NFC and certain kinds of technology that the phones already have on them. Every phone has an NFC chip in it now, and every phone has Bluetooth. Well, the smartphones do. Some of the cheap flip phones and the Samsung things don't. But if you're talking about anything that's $400 or more, it's going to have the tech in it. And as I say, in California, 20 to 30,000 people are being hired just to walk around and make contact to try to identify carriers. People that have it may not know it. There's a lot of people that have this virus asymptomatic. And they are, well, the authorities are very curious about identifying them for the supposed antibody opportunity about it as well. I want to go to the sound bites. We've had this whistleblower up there today, this guy named Rick Bright. And I'm telling you, folks, it is nothing more than an extension of the Mueller investigation. It is being treated as the next or an extension of the Kavanaugh hearings in terms of the purpose, in terms of the opportunity the left thought that these things presented. It is an extension of impeachment, Trump colluding with the president of Ukraine to dig up dirt on Biden, whatever it was. So they've got this whistleblower in there, Dr. Bright, and he's out there claiming that in his department of government, nobody's taking it seriously, that Trump is a buffoon, that nobody knows what they're doing, that we're not prepared. It's all designed to be dumped on Trump as someone who's over his head, doesn't know what he's doing, going to get us all killed. And here is a bit of his, I guess it's his opening statement here when the hearing began this morning.
Our window of opportunity is closing. If we fail to improve our response now based on science, I fear the pandemic will get worse and be prolonged. There will be likely a resurgence of COVID-19 this fall. It'll be greatly compounded by the challenges of seasonal influenza. Without better planning, 2020 could be the darkest winter in modern history.
Oh, no!
Our nation was not as prepared as we should have been, as we could have been. Some scientists raised early warning signals that were overlooked, and pages from our pandemic playbook were ignored by some in leadership.
Oh, my God, folks, without better planning, 2020 could be the darkest winter in modern history. Wonder who wrote that for the guy. Some scientists, notice that some scientists automatically, we have to accept, some scientists said, infallibility. Some scientists raised early warning signals that were overlooked because Trump is a buffoon and Trump doesn't care and Trump thinks he knows everything. I was ignored. I was not allowed to be a big guy in this. Nobody knows who I am. And that's what this is all about, so people can learn who Rick Bright is. Pages from our pandemic playbook were ignored by some in leadership. Those of us who know what we're doing were ignored. Trump doesn't care. Trump's a buffoon. We hate Trump. Trump's got to go. So now we move on to questioning. And one of the greatest examples I could give you as to what this is really all about, what its purpose is Elliot Engel. Elliot Engel is a Democrat from New York. He's now questioning Dr. Bright, the former Biomedical Advanced Research and Development Authority Director, Dr. Rick Bright. Listen to the question and the answer.
The president has sidelined our best scientists, pushed baseless conspiracy theories, and more recently prescribed unproven remedies like Lysol to suffering Americans. The president encouraged doctors to prescribe
the tape.
Chloroquine to...
Did you hear that? President Trump has sidelined our best scientists. Who was Trump sidelined? Anybody know who Trump... I mean, Dr. Fauci is still there. Dr. Birx, the scarf queen, is still there. The CDC guy is still there. The FEMA guy. They're all still there. Who has he sidelined? But then, more recently, the president prescribed unproven remedies like Lysol. No, he didn't. The president didn't tell anybody to inject Lysol. He didn't tell anybody to swallow Clorox. He didn't do anything of the sort. And that's the purpose of this hearing, is so these Democrats can continue to lie. Trump colluded with Russia. He is a Russian asset being run by Vladimir Putin. Trump prescribed unproven remedies like Lysol to suffering Americans. Trump has sidelined our best scientists. Trump worked hand in hand with the Russians to steal the election from Hillary Clinton. None of it's true, folks. None of it. It's all made up. It's all lies. Here, a little bit more of this before I have to take a break.
To suffering Americans despite a lack of evidence supporting its use. Doctor, what are the dangers of chloroquine if prescribed incorrectly? And what happened when you raised the issue of chloroquine
All right,
use?
stop the tape because I got to go to break. But now they're going to try to trash hydroxychloroquine, which is only still being used with great results in France. You know why? Because France turned off CNN. They're still prescribing it there. It's still having favorable results. But now they got a dump on this and not even permit it to be used because Trump recommended it. In fact, you're probably using a password manager of some kind, and all your credit card information and whatever else auto-fills in. You hit a keystroke and it auto-fills in. You don't even have to type it all out. At some point, this process becomes second nature to you. And you execute it fearlessly. You execute it without any concern that anybody is going to one day discover it. And it's the only way you could operate. If you were afraid every day that your stuff was going to get hacked and all, you wouldn't do it. But you do. You trust. Well, those data banks that have all that information, yours and every other customer, they are huge targets. Cyber thieves and hackers love it. It's a gold mine in the making. When they gain hold of all of that information in an online business database, man, they can go out and buy stuff. They can take out loans. They can get all kinds of cash before people catch on. All you need is a couple of weeks, and you can be home free. The worst part is you never know what's happening with your information until after the fact. And so you have no way of stopping it until now. Now there is LifeLock. LifeLock, online identity theft protection set up to look at online transactions, more than 1 billion of them every day, looking for signs and looking for evidence that your information is being used by somebody that's not you. LifeLock can do this. It's proprietary. I'm not going to tell you how, but they can do it. And when they think they have found somebody other than you using your data, they ask you. They ask you to confirm what they have found. And if you confirm that it's you, then everybody goes away, everything's fine. But if you tell them that it isn't you, that restoration team gets up to speed, everybody gets into gear, and they try to stop it, limit the damage, and then fix it. Make you whole. That's what the restoration team does, and they don't stop until that happens. LifeLock systems are second to none. There's a lot of people trying to do what LifeLock does, but nobody is in their league. Sign up at LifeLock.com and make sure to use my name when you do. Save 25% off your first year. You need LifeLock's protection if you're shopping online. It's LifeLock.com. Make sure you use my name in the process. Now, I'm going to go back to this Richard Burr business, because Richard Burr, the senator of North Carolina, chairman of the Senate Intelligence Committee, is a Republican. He's not a popular Republican. He's looked at as a pushover. He's looked at as a lightweight. And he's looked at certainly not a conservative and not a fighter. But it's still a case. The FBI went after the guy thinking that he acted on insider information by selling a stock portfolio just hours before the market crashed because of coronavirus. So they went out there and they had a warrant to get his iPhone data to find out what he knew and when he knew it. They were able to get sort of a warrant to Apple. They got his iCloud backup data. The point is, he's not the only one on the committee that did this. You know, with all of the news that we've learned this week about Democrat crime from the upper levels of the Obama Oval Office, and still the FBI's out there popping Republicans. Now, I'm not saying Burr doesn't deserve it, don't misunderstand, but where the hell is the similar action on Feinstein? Where is any kind of legal accountability for any of these Democrats who have gotten away with destroying Trump's presidency or trying to, perpetuating all of these lies? Look at the media, for crying. I know they've got First Amendment protections, but stop and think of the media here. The media runs with lie after lie after lie for 2 years. And everybody that fed them all of these leaks turns out was lying through their teeth. If I were the media and I had all these trusted sources and they had fed me one lie after another, I would be so livid. I'd be so ticked off. I would have told them to go pound sand, but there's none of that. They're not upset at their sources. They're not apologizing to their readers and viewers for misleading them, because they were all in on it. It never was news. It was a political activist objective. Get rid of Trump. Reverse the election results. And in the midst of all this, it's Republicans that keep getting popped. Feinstein's husband sold off a whole ton of stocks after the same coronavirus briefing that Richard Burr got, just like Burr did. Now, today, Feinstein's office confirmed she was questioned by the FBI and asked to turn over her documents. She still has a seat on the Intelligence Committee. Senator Dianne Feinstein's office confirmed she answered questions from the FBI and handed over documents about her husband's stock trades. Now, when they report on Burr, they use the word raided. The FBI raided the offices and the iPhone of Senator Richard Burr today. But when they showed up at Feinstein's office, they sat and had a talk. And she answered some questions very politely. And then she volunteered to give the FBI some records. But Richard Burr's iPhone was seized. Feinstein's records were given. There was a warrant executed against Richard Burr. Was there a warrant executed and filed against DiFi? Did they have to go get her info from her iCloud backup? So with DiFi, oh, she was so sweet, so nice. I had a little chat, and she willingly participated. Her husband did it. She doesn't know anything her husband does. Her husband is the financial brains of the family. I don't know. I was just sitting here trying to save America from Trump. Here's whatever you need from my phone with Burr. And I hope this is a lesson to Burr, because he's out there like every other Republican, trying to curry favor with the media, trying to avoid being ripped like Bush was ripped or like Trump is. And it never works. You can't buy them off. Here's Michael, but go back to in Western Florida. You have one more question I'm going to allow you to ask, because I misunderstood. You know, I thought you, when you asked me if there was going to be blowback, I thought you meant, would store owners open up in defiance? Would business owners violate the governor's rules? You're asking me if I thought...
Yeah, if this will carry over.
Yeah.
Into November. Yeah. Rush, you have a question just real quick?
Yeah. What is it?
You think President Trump is still following his gut when it comes to getting the economy restarted? Or I'm worried he's kind of listening too much to the Faucis of this world.
No, I think he's following his gut.
That's good. He's trusted it for this long.
No, he's not. He's not listening to Fauci. Look, the position that Trump is in here. He's calling these blue state governors out. I've got the sound bites here. They're all out of order, so it's going to take me a while to find them. But I've got sound bites here of Trump identifying. Here, grab 6 and 7. Here's Trump last night during a meeting with the governor of Colorado, the governor of North Dakota. And Trump took some questions from reporters. Reporters said, yesterday, Dr. Fauci was a little cautious about reopening the economy too soon. Do you share his concern?
Look, he wants to play all sides of the equation.
When you say Dr. Fauci is playing both sides, are you suggesting that the advice
Well, I
he's
was
giving to you
surprised by his answer, actually, because, it's just, to me, it's not an acceptable answer, especially when it comes to schools.
It damn well isn't an acceptable. If you say that we can't reopen the schools, you're telling parents they can't go back to work, folks. If the kids are going to stay home because you can't send them to school, then the parents can't go to work. And that, believe me, is the purpose here. The purpose of keeping schools closed is to keep the economy moribund. Make no mistake about it, Trump knows it. Next, he was on the Fox Business Network today with Maria Bartiromo. She said, Dr. Fauci's major message that he wants to convey is that the danger is if we skip over the checkpoints and the guidelines to open America again, then we risk danger of multiple outbreaks.
Anthony is a good person, very good person. I've disagreed with him. When I closed the border to China, he disagreed with that, and then ultimately he agreed. We have to get the schools open. We have to get our country open. We have to open our country.
Do you think your critics want you to keep it closed going into the election?
Yeah, I do. I think it's a political thing in addition. If it was up to some people, let's keep it closed for a long time, okay? A long time, and watch the United States go down the tubes. Not going to happen.
So he gets it. He knows exactly what he's up against here. And he's up against more than Fauci. He's up against these blue state governors, and he's up against the media. He's up against, and the media is not chump change here. He's up against a bunch of people. He knows that he's the target. He knows. He knows there are a bunch of people willing to destroy this country's economy to get rid of him. No, he's following his instincts on this. He's not listening. I mean, you say listening too much to the Faucis of the world. He's got to listen to some of it. I mean, there clearly is a health component here, but I don't think you have to. Closing flights from China. He disagreed with that, and then ultimately he agreed. That's kind of newsworthy. I hadn't heard that before. That Dr. Fauci opposed shutting down flights from Wuhan and the Chicom virus headquarters. Anyway, there's a correlation between home break-ins and people being in their homes. That's common sense, but it illustrates a point. The number of home burglaries during this time are down. Some cities are reporting decreases 25 to 50% from the same time period last year. You know why? Because people are at home. Contrary to what you might think, burglars don't break in when they think people are there. They don't break in when you're asleep. That's just for TV shows. They try to break in when they think nobody's home. They don't like to run into people in their line of work. But it's not always going to be like this. You are going to resume going to work someday, and you're going to resume going out regularly again, and home burglaries, sadly, they will resume as well. Now, if your home is not protected with a home security system, you need to fix that right now, and you can do it without breaking your bank. It's the great thing about Simply Safe Home Security. Cutting to the chase, they've eliminated the wires. When you take the wires out, you take a lot of cost, a lot of complexity. You take a lot of the need for other people to be involved in your system.
There's no site survey necessary. There's no construction project to run the wires. There's nothing because the sensors all connect to the central base station via Wi-Fi. And if a sensor goes bad, it's obvious, it's identified. You can trace it easily, replace it easily. It's why they call it Simply Safe. It has really simplified home security. It's just as secure, works just as well, but it's much more consumer friendly. You have an intimate awareness relationship with your system. It's not something you need somebody else to come out and deal with, fix, or what have you. You leave home and you set your alarm. It'll notify you and the cops of a break-in. There's professional monitoring, 24/7 monitoring, and it's only $14.99 a month, not $50. There's no contract to sign. You'll be amazed how much it doesn't cost, folks. And it's every bit as effective as any security system. In addition to that, you can install it in a condo, in an apartment, a small business. You don't have to have a full-fledged multi-room house. You can put this anywhere. More than 3 million families have installed Simply Safe. The number is growing exponentially. See it online, simplysafeusa.com. They're going to throw in, if you buy a $100 HD camera El Fribo when you buy now. simplysafeusa.com. Okay, Jeff, Cuba City, Wisconsin. Great to have you, sir. Hello.
Hey, Rush. Nice to talk to you. A blue state finally won. Wisconsin Supreme Court overturned the stay-at-home orders.
I saw that.
So I guess we're open for business.
Until they can find a way to shut you down. They're already trying to say, well, those justices were all conservatives on that court, as though somehow that disqualifies it.
Well, yeah, but they also mandated that all future restrictions to the coronavirus must be approved by the legislature.
Meaning lockdowns, shutdowns, that the governor just can't do this.
Right.
Unilaterally. And again, folks, this is Wisconsin. And it was a Supreme Court decision, state Supreme Court, with a majority conservative vote. It's a great teachable moment. And it's a check on runaway power. Look, I'm still, the question about will people in the blue states revolt? It's a really valid question. Will they revolt to their governors shutting down their livelihoods? Revolt, however you define it. Ballot box, open up, I don't know. But it's going to be the thing